Chapter 18. Thou munnot waste no time. Of course, Mary did not waken early the next morning. She slept late because she was tired. Colin was quite quiet. He was ill and feverish, as he always was after he had worn himself out with a fit of crying. Mary ate her breakfast slowly as she listened. "He says he wishes thou would please go and see him as soon as thou can," Martha said. "It's queer what a fancy he's took to thee. Thou did give it him last night for sure, didn't thou? Nobody else would have dared to do it. Eh, poor lad. He's been spoiled till salt won't save him. Mother says as the two worst things as can happen to a child is never to have his own way, or always to have it. She doesn't know which is the worst. Thou was in a fine temper thyself too. But he says to me when I went into his room, 'Please ask Miss Mary if she'll please come and talk to me.' Think of him. Say him, please. Will you go, miss?" "I'll run and see Dickon first," said Mary. "No, I'll go and see Colin first and tell him. I know what I'll tell him," with a sudden inspiration. She had her hat on when she appeared in Colin's room, and for a second he looked disappointed. He was in bed. His face was pitifully white, and there were dark circles round his eyes. "I'm glad you came," he said. "My head aches, and I ache all over because I'm so tired. Are you going somewhere?" Mary went and leaned against his bed. "I won't be long," she said. "I'm going to Dickon, but I'll come back. Colin, it's something about the garden." His whole face brightened, and a little colour came into it. "Oh, is it?" he cried out. "I dreamed about it all night. I heard you say something about grey changing into green, and I dreamed I was standing in a place all filled with trembling little green leaves, and there were birds on nests everywhere, and they looked so soft and still. I'll lie and think about it until you come back." In 5 minutes, Mary was with Dickon in their garden. The fox and the crow were with him again, and this time he had brought 2 tame squirrels. "I came over on the pony this morning," he said. "Eh, he is a good little chap, Jump is. I brought these 2 in my pockets. This here one's called Nut, and this here one's called Shell." When he said Nut, one squirrel leaped onto his right shoulder, and when he said Shell, the other one leaped onto his left. When they sat down on the grass with Captain curled at their feet, Soot solemnly listening on a tree, and Nut and Shell nosing about close to them, it seemed to Mary that it would be scarcely bearable to leave such delightfulness. But when she began to tell her story, somehow the look in Dickon's funny face gradually changed her mind. She could see he felt sorrier for Colin than she did. He looked up at the sky and all about him. "Just listen to them birds. The world seems full of 'em, all whistling and piping," he said. "Look at 'em darting about, and harking at 'em calling to each other. Come springtime seems like as if all the world's calling. The leaves is uncurling so you can see 'em, and my word, the nice smells there is about," sniffing with his happy turned-up nose. "And that poor lad lying shut up and seeing so little that he gets to thinking of things as gets him screaming. Eh, my, we mun get him out here, we mun get him here watching and listening and sniffing up the air, and get him just soaked through with sunshine. And we munnot lose time about it. When he was very much interested, he often spoke quite broad Yorkshire, though at other times he tried to modify his dialect so that Mary could better understand. But she loved his broad Yorkshire, and had in fact been trying to learn to speak it herself. So she spoke a little now. "Aye, that we mun," she said, which meant, yes, indeed, we must. "I'll tell thee what us'll do first," she proceeded, and Dickon grinned, because when the little wench tried to twist her tongue into speaking Yorkshire, it amused him very much. "He's took a gradely fancy to thee. He wants to see thee, and he wants to see Soot and Captain. When I go back to house to talk to him, I'll ax him if tha canna come and see him tomorrow morning and bring tha creatures with thee, and then, in a bit, when there's more leaves out, and happen a bud or two, we'll get him to come out, and thou'll push him in his chair, and we'll bring him here and show him everything." When she stopped, she was quite proud of herself. She had never made a long speech in Yorkshire before, and she had remembered very well. "Thou mun talk a bit of Yorkshire like that to Master Colin." Dickon chuckled. "Thou'll make him laugh, and there's nowt as good for ill folk as laughing is. Mother says she believes as half-hour's good laugh every morning 'ud cure a chap as was making ready for typhus fever." "I'm going to talk Yorkshire to him this very day," said Mary, chuckling herself. The garden had reached the time when every day and every night it seemed as if magicians were passing through it, drawing loveliness out of the earth and the boughs with wands. It was hard to go away and leave it all, particularly as Nut had actually crept onto her dress, and Shell had scrambled down the trunk of the apple tree they sat under and stayed there looking at her with inquiring eyes. But she went back to the house, and when she sat down close to Colin's bed, he began to sniff, as Dickon did, though not in such an experienced way. "You smell like flowers and fresh things," he cried out joyously. "What is it you smell of? It's cool and warm and sweet all at the same time." "It's the wind from the moor," said Mary. "It comes a-sitting on the grass under a tree with Dickon, and wi' Captain and Soot and Nut and Shell. It's the springtime and out to doors, and sunshine has smelled so greatly." She said it as broadly as she could, and you do not know how broadly Yorkshire sounds until you have heard someone speak it.